Scarlet Hollow is a visual novel about a small mining town that has a bunch of secrets. You play as an outsider who happens to be a relative of the founding family of this town, or at least the most important family that owns the coal mine and most of the buildings in the town, from what I can tell. It's a fish out of water story, and I like it a lot. It's all about cryptids. It's an episodic game, but it isn't finished yet, so you get about 4 out of, I believe, the planned 7 episodes. Like with other visual novels, the story really is the main draw of this game. You've got a branching dialogue. It's pretty cool. You can kind of shape how you want your character to act. I like it an awful lot. At the beginning of the game, you learn that you are traveling by bus to Scarlet Hollow for a funeral. Your aunt died. You've never actually met your aunt before, or really any of the other family members. You happen to have been invited there by your cousin Tabitha. And she's an overworked and overstressed young woman, because she's running an entire coal mine by herself, as well as handling all of the other bullshit that her family is really dealing with, and the fact that her mom died. So, yeah, there's that. You also learned that your mother died. So, yeah, just a whole bunch of weirdness going on all at once, and a lot of stuff that you have two essentially kids in their 20s dealing with. It's alluded to the fact that you and Tabitha are the only living members of the Scarlet family, but I'm not entirely sure if that's actually true or not. A little bit about the town. Scarlet Hollow is a company town, so everything is owned by the major corporation there, which happens to be the coal mine. All of the residential buildings, or at least most of them, are owned by the Scarlet family, and they rent them out to their workers. It's a shitty situation. Thankfully, unlike a lot of the historical company towns, Scarlet Hollow doesn't operate on its own currency system, which would make everything just even worse. They've also been fighting the coal mining union for a while, which is going to play a bigger part in the next episodes that get released, as with the 4th episode, a strike has just happened. Each episode deals with a different cryptid. You have the first one, which is the ditchlings, something that I had never really heard of before. The second one deals with Tommyknockers, which I had heard of, but didn't realize exactly what the reference was. The third episode deals with ghosts, which, fair enough. And the 4th deals with the Jersey Devil, or at least a Jersey Devil, something that was very heavily inspired by it. Each episode is kind of cool. It feels like you get a beginning to the story, middle, and an end for every episode, and I'm guessing it's all building to something really cool, or at least it's building to the funeral, so we'll see what happens then. It's going to be a while before they come out, because I think each episode is getting released every year, so we got a little while to wait for a conclusion. There are a lot of really great characters in this, too. You've got a YouTube star, you've got Tabitha who's running a mine, you've got the librarian, you've got just a whole bunch of people that seem really fun. The 4th episode, which is the one I finished most recently, that one was really interesting because it took a turn in a direction I wasn't expecting. The person who I thought was the monster turned out not to be as bad as I originally thought. Still bad, but not as bad. I'm also really looking forward to seeing just what Wayne's whole role in this story is. Wayne is this weird guy who seems to be following you around and acting as like a guardian angel of sorts, but looks an awful lot like a slasher villain. Like he's in his own movie when he's not saving you. Like he's off at some camp harassing a bunch of teenagers that are just trying to get laid. It seems really interesting, and I kind of like him, but I'm not really sure where he's going. One funny thing about this is that everybody seems totally on board with the idea that there are monsters running around in this town. At first, you have like the skeptic who's kind of like, well, there's a logical explanation for this, and that makes sense. But everyone else is just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, it's a ghost. That makes sense. The ghost stole part of your life. Okay, I got that. Or there are these weird Pillsbury Doughboy mutant things wandering around called ditchlings, and everybody's just kind of like, oh, they're harmless. Don't worry about them. They just implant, their babies inside of living creatures. They're fine. Don't worry about that. It's just really funny to see that all play out. I do really enjoy stories like this where you have a town with a dark past and a secret. It's just always an excellent setting for a horror story. It doesn't always translate to a good horror story, but it's always a really fun setting for one. And that's how I feel about Scarlet Hollow. Some of the stories make a lot more sense than others, or at least work better in this whole universe that they've created. I think the fourth episode was probably the best, or at least that's the one that I think was the best. The first and the second were both very good, and I thought the third was a little weak just because it was dealing with spirits. It had a good setup, but it was something that I just didn't like as much. I'm sure there are other people with their own opinions on this, and that's fine. I'm just telling you how I felt about the story. Overall, it's really great, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes in the next couple episodes. The gameplay in Scarlet Hollow is really simple, which you should kind of expect for a visual novel. It's all about reading the story and making dialogue choices. You don't have to move your character around or anything like that. The game gives you plenty of time to make your decisions. It's pretty awesome. The decisions you make actually impact the story and the relationship with the characters that you have. I like this because it just makes each playthrough feel a little bit different. It is fun to see how the characters react to you and what parts of the story you might have missed. So if you play through it one way to make your character seem like, a normal person who isn't an asshole, you could always go the other route and make your character a total dick. One thing I didn't like was how the game seems to be like crowbarring in these flirt options with a bunch of different characters. I wouldn't mind it if my character was acting that way to kind of unlock those, but it just didn't make a whole lot of sense for the way that I was playing it. It's easy enough to just avoid those, but it just felt a little odd that I'm going along and we have this horrible situation going, and just out of nowhere it's like, hey, you can flirt with this person. It just seemed a little out of character for what I was going for. And they just kept popping up in weird moments. You can always just ignore the dialogue options and pick whatever you want, so it's not a big deal. Scarlet Hollow lets you act however you want, which I really enjoyed. There are some dialogue limitations, but those are kind of understandable because, they need to fit into the overall arching narrative of what's going on. So if you get asked a question and you would respond to it in a specific way, that option may not actually be in the list of things that you can do. It is what it is. They need to keep the plot moving and they need to keep, the whole game going forward, so you might not get exactly what you want. I like the story so far. I like the game so far. There are a few more episodes, like I mentioned, so there will probably be an update on this when the next episode comes out. Or, yeah, I'll just release like a standalone video on that. The game looks great. Scarlet Hollow has like hand-drawn graphics, so it looks like a bunch of sketches. While playing the game, I felt like I was staring at someone's sketchbook that they had just turned into a video game at times. There's an unsettling atmosphere in the game. Things get kind of creepy as the game's going on, especially when you're looking for cryptids, and the ghost part is pretty freaky, even though I didn't really like the story as much. It looks great. I like how unnatural everything looks, and just how the characters react to it, or don't react to it at times. Scarlet Hollow is just a beautiful game when it needs to be, and it can be pretty scary and creepy when it has to be. There's just something a little unsettling about the way the characters look at you, especially Tabitha. When she smiles, it looks painful. I don't know how to describe it in any other way. And I just love seeing how everything changes with this game. It looks very good. Scarlet Hollow has one of the best stories that I've come across in a video game. It's creepy, and it reminds me of like old horror movies and campfire stories that I've heard over the years. I can't wait for the other episodes to be released. This is just a really excellent game, and the story is very engaging. I also like the gameplay a lot. I know visual novels aren't for everyone, but I really like the fact that you've got all these dialogue choices and you can always go back and try something different. It's really cool. I'm also looking forward to seeing how this story unfolds over the next few episodes, especially with the cliffhanger that they left us off on with episode 4. Anyway, that's going to wrap things up. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.